오케이. 오케이. 안녕하십니까? 오늘 한국핵심역량교육학회에서 국제 세미나를 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 오늘 주제는 선진대학교에서 선진외국에서 대학에서의 진로 교육을 어떻게 실시하고 있는지를 살펴보고 또 한국의 사례를 같이 나눠보면서 대학에서의 진로 교육이 어떻게 가야 될 것인가를 논의하는 그런 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 그래서 오늘 두 분의 외국 전문가를 모셨습니다. 한 분은 파룩 데이 박사님이신데요. 스탠퍼드 대학의 커리어 센터를 맡고 계십니다. 스탠퍼드 대학의 커리어 센터가 사실 미국뿐 아니라 세계적으로도 가장 앞서간 형태로 지금 대학의 진로 교육을 실시를 하고 있습니다. 그래서 아마 오늘 좋은 발표를 해주실 거라고 생각이 되고요. 그 다음에는 싱가포르 난양공대의 러프와 센터장님이 오셔서 싱가포르 난양공대에서 행해지고 있는 진로 교육에 대해서 이야기를 나누겠습니다. 그래서 싱가포르와 미국이 나라의 규모나 여러 가지가 굉장히 차이가 나지만은 인력을 굉장히 잘 양성하고 활용한다는 측면에서 공통점을 가지고 있습니다. 인력의 양성에 있어서 활용에서 가장 핵심적인 교육기관이 대학이라고 할 수 있을 때 이 두 개 나라에서 두 개 나라 가운데서도 가장 앞서가는 대학에서 학생들의 진로지도를 위해서 어떻게 활동하고 있는지를 그리고 앞으로 나가야 될 방향에 대해서 얘기를 들어보면서 이제 여러 가지 지금 한국에도 시사를 얻을 수 있을 것입니다. 그래서 두 분의 외국 사례를 마친 다음에 저희들이 최근에 한국의 21개 대학을 바탕으로 해서 리서치를 한 결과를 갖고서 한국에 있어서 진로 교육의 현황이랄까 어떤 방향이 어떻게 가져갈 것인가에 대해서 발표를 제가 하도록 하겠습니다. 저는 한국직업능력개발원의 진미석입니다. 그리고 저희 세 사람의 발표가 끝난 다음에 우리 한 분의 오프라인으로 여기 함께 모신 삼성 디자인 스쿨에 있는 사디 스쿨이라고 합니다. 사디 스쿨에 있는 김명진 교수님이 전체적으로 토론을 해주실 거고 저희들뿐만 아니라 지금 온라인으로 지금 중계가 되고 있기 때문에 여러분들께서 이 주제에 대해서 들어보시고 생기는 궁금증을 같이 나누는 시간 갖고서 오픈 토론을 하는 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 그럼 먼저 우리 파룩 디 박사님께서 미국의 사례, 스탠퍼드의 사례에 대해서 우리 설명하도록 하겠습니다. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. First. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Please start.
Thank you. 안녕하세요. Thank you very much for having me here to speak a little bit about career education, career and experiential education, emerging models, and what we are working on. What I would like to speak about in the next 30 to 40 minutes is the series of trends that we are seeing in the global markets that are emerging and that are putting new pressures on higher education and on universities to change the way they are educating students and preparing them for the workforce. Just look at what has been happening over the last decade or so. The number of artificial intelligence patents, for example, that applications have grown dramatically, especially in the United States and in China. Job displacement by automation is on a rise, at 57% of jobs being displaced by machines worldwide. Those numbers are higher in countries like China at 77%, Thailand at 72%, Ethiopia at 85%, and many countries that currently have most of their labor relying on physical skills that are now being taken over by automation. If you look at another publication or another graph that was published by the World Economic World Economic Forum, excuse me, you will see that the employee-weighted overall percentage of activities that can be automated by adapting automated technologies is also on the rise, especially in countries in Asia and Southeast Asia and South America. So all of this is forcing us in higher education to rethink the levels of knowledge and skills that we have to equip our college graduates in order to be prepared for the workforce. So if you look at this slide that also came from the World Economic Forum, you will see that there is now much more of a focus and a need on cognitive skills, system skills, and problem-solving skills more than physical skills and technical skills, which are at the bottom. So it is the responsibility of the university to rethink its curriculum and rethink the way it connects students with the workforce based on the skills of the future that are on demand. These are the top 10 skills that are projected to be in 2020, and if you look at only the top 3, you see that there is much higher value now on problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity, which is an area that universities have to spend a lot of time on, because the theory is that machines are not yet able to be as creative as human beings. The machines that are being developed today, and robots, if you will, are being developed in order to take over the manual labor that can be repetitive. But creativity is not a repetitive activity, and that's a skill that has to be developed in higher education more than ever before. So we have now a new call for educators and for industry, for employers, to push our boundaries and to think outside of our box and to think in different ways about the future talent for the future of work. This transition from college to career has always been challenging and has always been difficult, but it is more difficult now and more challenging. This gap is widening, and therefore we as college educators, as career educators, and then also as industry partners have to provide this level of support to help college students transition from college to career smoothly. And perhaps a better way to look at this transition in this new world is to look at it as a journey to meaningful work. So it's not a jump from one side of the cliff to the other, but it's just one journey that when we are all partners in it, in helping the student climb through this journey and develop their skills and find their path towards meaningful work. So it starts there, that we're not only looking at placing students in jobs, we are looking at putting students on the path towards meaningful work, towards work that is meaningful to them, that is satisfactory, that allows us to contribute to their community. So there's a call for us to predict our future by creating it. That is the best way to really reinvent our processes in higher education, in career development centers, and even in recruiting practices in industry. When you think of this idea of transformation, I often talk about it similar to the transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly. And what's interesting about this example is that in order for a caterpillar to go through this metamorphosis or this transformation, it has to go through a self-digestion process. It's a self-digestion process in which the caterpillar eats its own body. So we have to be courageous enough, or at least as courageous as caterpillars, and to be willing to potentially move away from some systems that we've had for many decades already, or many years, and start new, because that's what the caterpillar has done here in order to emerge into a butterfly. We see this with products that are all around us. Think of the Apple products that have shifted from the iPod to the iPad, to the iPhone, and then to the iPad. In order for that to happen, a company like Apple had to go through its own self-digestion process and digest its own iPod market, which it had control over, in order to emerge like a butterfly with a new product that's now that now has the monopoly in the mobile technology. So That is the call for us, and in fact, we have gone through this in the United States for many decades already. When we think about career development and career planning, every economic cycle, we have seen a different kind of paradigm that connected people with work. In the early 1900s, the idea of vocational guidance emerged to assist new immigrants who were coming in the United States with finding work that was suitable to their skills. That same model was later applied by professors in colleges and universities all around the country in the absence of career development centers that we have today. That model had to go through its own self-digestion process in the 1920s when there was a need for more teachers in the country. And it was applied for teacher vocational guidance. And that was the first time that in the United States, universities began to create teacher vocational guidance offices that helps teachers find work after they graduate. The next economic cycle change came after World War II with the return of veterans from World War II into colleges on what was called the GI Bill that allowed them to go to universities for free. And all of a sudden now universities were tasked with the challenge of placing all these new graduates in a manufacturing economy. So universities created placement centers that helped place them into opportunities. That paradigm lasted for about 20 to 30 years until the next paradigm emerged because of the service industry in the 1970s that created a variety of jobs and of careers. So it's no longer a manufacturing manufacturing industry. Now it's a different type of economy that has many a wider variety of job opportunities and careers. And now college students are wanting counseling in order to find what their path is for their future. They want to find the right opportunity for themselves, not just to be placed in a career. That paradigm was challenged again in the next economic cycle change and had to self-digest and emerge as a networking paradigm during the dot-com boom era, where companies and employers returned to college campuses and interacted much more in order to connect with students and identify their talents. So the responsibility of these counseling centers shifted to become networking centers and to facilitate the networking between students and employers. As you can see here, every era, if universities stayed with the same model that they had before, it wouldn't have worked. During the dot-com boom, if universities resisted that change and decided to stay with counseling models, they wouldn't have served their students well, and they wouldn't have served the economy well or industry well. So the idea here is that every time the economy changes, universities and industry have to change the way they do business in order to facilitate the transition of the graduates from college to the workforce, in order to facilitate the matchmaking that happens between talent and between employment. So as you can see, this has happened over every 20 to 30 years, every time the economy changes. And as you know, the economy changed quite a bit in 2008 with the recent global recession. And now we have all of us all around the world, in Asia and in America and in other continents. The question in front of us is, what's next? What is the model of the future? If the previous model was the networking model, what is the future model? What is the responsibility of universities? We already know that universities have the responsibility to equip students with the appropriate skills that qualify them for the jobs of the future. We have already established that. In addition to that, what do universities have to do? What we have found at Stanford is that they have to become better at establishing connections and communities for students and for employers, for industry, that they need to become hubs for these communities that create opportunities. They have to create spaces where these communities form naturally and where connections can happen organically and lead students to greater opportunities that they wouldn't have realized on their own. But all of this is being challenged by just really interesting trends that we are seeing all around the world. The first trend that we are seeing is that there is a question that's now on every family's kitchen table all around the world is college worth it? Is it worth it to spend all this money to send the students to a college, or is it more worth it to send them to a program that helps them develop those necessary skills, and it would be less expensive, and it would guarantee them a job? And that's a valid question that's being asked in the United States, in Asia, in Europe, all around the world. And what is the answer to that? And I think that that's what higher education has to address today. These questions are being raised because parents and families are more and more involved in their kids, in their children's education, and also post-graduation education. In the United States, we have the phenomena of helicopter parents. I have learned that Korea is not immune to that, that Koreans have helicopter parents also, and in Asia as well. And what we are seeing now is that these helicopter parents are now landing on college campuses and are bulldozing through different offices and are deciding to or are asking to be partners with college campuses in this transition of their students into the workforce. So that's a trend that we cannot ignore, and that universities and colleges all around the world can learn how to leverage. We are seeing that students of today's generation care more about meaning making and about finding jobs and careers that match their passions and their interests and that allow them to find meaning in their work, rather than just a job and a salary. That it's not just about finding a job. They want to find a job that they love, that they're really interested in. And that's a responsibility that universities have to think about today, is how do we put these students on the path towards meaningful work and connect them with people and with communities that could potentially facilitate that meaning making for them. What we have learned at Stanford is that meaning making happens if the following exists in an environment around a student. If a student is exposed to knowledge of self, knowledge of majors, knowledge of work, and if the student has the ability or the opportunity to have meaningful experiences while they go to college, where they have meaningful experiences that allow them to have meaningful connections and communities. I think that that's really powerful, and it helps students develop this concept of meaningful work. So our challenge in the universities is to help students become life designers rather than career explorers. The difference between the two is quite obvious. Career explorers work on predicting what they will be in the future, but life designers are not so much concerned about predicting their future, but rather more concerned about the action and what's happening in front of them, and how they can transition from one step to another and design their life based on prototyping, based on creating different ideas, prototyping, and testing the different opportunities until they find their path moving forward. This is all really important because we are dealing with a different generation today. It's a generation that connects differently and that has new ways of thinking, of doing, of working, and of even connecting with one another, and of making meaning of the different experiences that they have. And this has to force universities and colleges and also industries to find new ways to capture or to leverage this new generation and how they work. If you just take a look at what has happened in the last 60 seconds of the time that I've been speaking, Over 4 million YouTube videos have been watched. You could see that over 300 tweets have been made. Over 3 million Google searches have been processed. So there is a lot of activity that happens online. But the truth is that we as human beings have always been tribal creatures. No matter how adept we are to technologies, we always go back to how do we connect with one another and how do we connect with our communities. It just happens in different ways today and in much more scalable and faster ways. So we at Stanford have really looked into all of these trends and started thinking about employers themselves, about industry and companies when they are interested in identifying talent within our college campuses. And what they have told us is that they look at college students as talent communities that are segmented by academic majors and disciplines, by skills like leadership skills, communication skills, etc., by group affiliation that describes their personality or their identity, and then by geography, where they're from or where they want to go to. And they segment them this way because it helps employers shorten the path to identifying the talent that they're looking for, and they're looking for a connection point on campus. So when they come to college campuses, every university is different and has different systems, and companies don't have time to waste and don't have resources to waste in order to find that talent. So it is a responsibility of the university to create systems and centers and processes that facilitate these connections, to create these connections hubs that make it easy for a company to find their talent based on these different types of communities. So this is forcing universities like us at Stanford to rethink our systems internally, and rather than creating career centers, what we're creating is an ecosystem, and we're developing these communities that employers and companies are looking for. So we're developing these communities of students and alumni, of faculty and administrators, of employers themselves, and then even for parents and families who we are very interested in developing relationships with. And then that way we become connections hubs for these communities, and it becomes very easy for employers to identify their talent. This is also forcing us to really rethink our previous models. The model of career counseling that I shared earlier that happened in the United States in the 1970s and 80s is no longer appropriate for this generation of students that thinks differently, connects differently, uses the internet. They're now going to find value in coming for one-on-one counseling sessions. What they're looking for is scale. What they're looking for is quick information. What they're looking for is advocacy from us rather than counseling. Where they're looking for industry connections rather than therapy, offering them therapy. They're looking for us to mentor them rather than teach them. They're looking for us to provide transformational experiences rather than transactional services. If we do all of this right, what we will achieve is helping build confidence among these students so that they can go and take on the world on their own. It's a very different framework, but the good news for universities is that it's not an expensive model to do it. In fact, what we have learned is that the previous models of providing large teams of counselors and advisors are not very scalable, and they focus too much on individual one-on-ones that cannot reach every single student on a college campus. So the new methodologies that are coming have to be scalable, and they have to build communities and assist students to learn from one another and to help one another, and use the power of alumni networks and of corporate networks and employer networks and the faculty in order to help students be in the right place at the right time in order to capture the right opportunity. If we do this right, what we do is we create a culture of happenstance on a college campus. Happenstance means, or can be seen as meaning a chance event, a lucky event. I just happened to be somewhere, and then someone offered me a job, or I found an opportunity. The truth is that much of that does not really depend on luck. It depends on preparation and on being in the right place at the right time. And in order to do that, you have to be in an environment that fosters a lot of those connections and communities in order to increase the likelihood that you will be in the right place at the right time, in front of the right person who will provide you with the right opportunity. So if we move from a transactional career counseling model into a transformational happenstance model that develops connections and communities, what we do is we work with students to develop and pursue their curiosity. We encourage them to be persistent. We encourage them to be flexible. So as you are part of this community, you might have ideas for what you want to do, but you might learn new things that might help you shift your future direction, that you're optimistic about the future rather than you try to predict it. So it's just be optimistic and be comfortable with the uncertainty of what will be in the future, and take risks. Try new things and take risks. Be part of communities that you and get to know new people. And the college experience has to provide a lot of these opportunities. So rather than spending resources on, investing resources on advisors who meet with students in one-on-one appointments, I would encourage every university and college to spend those resources in lots of programs that bring students together, maybe some alumni backed with them and some companies and employers with them, and do lots of events like that that help people develop communities and be in the right place at the right time to establish the right connections. As we build these communities, we have to think of our spaces, of our buildings, where this happens. And a previous model for career development used to focus on building lots of individual small rooms or offices for appointments. But the future, the Career Center has space that has lots of open spaces, workshop rooms, spaces with couches, with chairs, that allow for community to come together and to meet up and to build connections, that engage alumni and employers and families. Community can be everywhere, so I encourage universities and colleges to not be paralyzed by the idea that resources are necessary in order to develop this. You can develop a community at a coffee shop, at a restaurant, in some lounge out there, in an outdoor space. So it doesn't have to be a state-of-the-art building. But eventually you can get to that state-of-the-art building that looks like a startup culture that we see in some of the startup environments in Silicon Valley or in Korea or in Singapore or in other countries. And these are some pictures of spaces that I saw in Singapore, actually, that display that show how a space can be designed in order to encourage creativity and to encourage community development. As you build these programs, think of the magic experience that you infuse throughout your programming and throughout your these activities. And it's no different than the magical moments that children experience when they go to Disney World, for example. It's about that moment where they connect with their favorite character, or where they experience their favorite ride, or they have their favorite food, or something that really happens that gets them excited. What is it that you can infuse in your programming and in your community development as an industry partner or as a university and company that will allow you to create these magical moments that tend to be memorable and that tend to have a big impact on college students? In fact, you could do this in a very scalable way by just inserting very fun experiential learning activities that have very deeply rooted lessons that will have a lifelong impact on students. and that would take hours of counseling appointments to achieve. This is an example of a program that I ran for a school in the Philippines, and I had 1,000 students and staff and faculty who played for 2 hours life design games using design thinking strategies to learn some very important lessons about career development. And as you can see here, they are having so much fun. They're having such a good time. And they're not just playing, they are actually really learning very valuable lessons. They're playing a quick game here of paper, rock, scissors. And the winner gets to evolve into their next step in life. The person who loses gets to go back one step into an earlier step in life. So, and that is supposed to teach them resilience. So what do you do if you take a step back? How do you climb back from it? How do you use the community around you? You notice that no one gets to advance forward without connecting with someone else and playing paper, rock, scissors. There's a lesson there that you don't get to do it on your own. You have to be part of a community and get some help and work with others in order to advance in your life and your career. And then if you take a step back, how do you beat that and become very resilient? Very important lessons that we taught in just 2 hours in a very fun way. And I could tell you that the impact was major, as I see it in other places where I've taught this course. This impact was major because many of the students emailed me afterwards and they said that the lessons will stay with them for a lifetime. From a university perspective, this only took 2 hours. It took one facilitator, just me, and a big room, and 1,000 students. It did not require 1,000 counselors or 1,000 coaches. So there is a way for universities to provide this type of service in a very scalable way, in a way that also costs less resources. As we develop these types of programs, it's important that it has the following items in order for that level of experiential learning to have that level of impact that I had with those 1,000 students. First of all, you have to think of the application. Is your experiential learning program or activity applicable to the learning outcomes that you want them to have? Does the exercise build connection, and does the exercise build community? It has to have those two elements in order for it to work. It has to build connection and it has to build community. It has to allow for natural feedback to be given among the community members. So you as the facilitator are not the one who has to provide all of the knowledge material and all of the feedback. You are just creating the space and facilitating and empowering people to do this on their own. It has to be relevant and it has to be to achieve a certain level of significance. This is all being infused in new technologies today that will help scale these efforts even much more further. So I have worked with some startups in the career development space, and I've done actually some research and interviewed lots of people who are in that process to come up with this pyramid that shows what a new technology or the startups of the future need to have in order to facilitate career development. At the most basic level, they have to be intuitive. This generation is very impatient with technology. If they can't get to what they want to get to within one click or one swipe on their mobile phone, they will move on and they will not use that application. So it has to be intuitive, which means that it has to be accessible, simple, visually appealing, customizable, and very responsive. The next level for that technology is that it has to provide some sort of social networking element. What I mean by that is that your technology has to develop connections and communities among people and develop these networks and these cohorts so that you are not going through this journey of career development alone. You are going through this journey by comparing yourself to the journeys of others and by learning from their examples and by leveraging their connections and for them to leverage your own connections. And you find your path as a community. That feedback loop is very important. And then lastly, in order for it to be very enticing, is that it has to be fun. Highly curated, has a systems of rewards, and highly personalized. And that will create that level of addiction, if you will, that will keep people come back to that application and use it. If your technology, if I'm advising a startup in career development today, I would tell them focus on these three elements, make it intuitive, social, and fun. And if you do this in partnership with a university and in collaboration with industry, we should be able to serve many students, facilitate the matchmaking process between students and employers with less resources and very scalable ways. And I believe that that's the way of the future. And as we move into the future, we have to be better at measuring our outcomes. And the way we measure our outcomes, both in technology and on our college campuses and industry, is by measuring engagement. I also tell the different startups that I work with is that you live and die by engagement. You can have the best app in the world if students or if talent is not engaged, and what I mean by engaged is that they keep coming back and using it all the time, then it will die, it will not work. And the same thing with these career development programs that happen on college campuses. You have to have continuous engagement. And in order to have that, you have to develop a certain level of awareness and a certain level of confidence that if they use these resources, they will be able to advance in their careers and achieve the high destinations that we hope for them. So all of this is to go back and say that how do we know this today is because we have spent the time to look at the history, and we have figured out that every 20 to 30 years, every time the economy changes, labor markets force universities and industries to adapt and come up with a new paradigm. We are in the new paradigm, the new emerging paradigm today, and that's connections and communities. And that forces us to adapt, to apply many new applications. This is a very busy grid, I understand. Don't worry about it. It is available online, so you can download it from an article that's on LinkedIn. But the idea here is that universities have to have the courage to dismantle some of their old processes and come up with new ways of serving their students in order to achieve the promise of the different cornerstones of the universities and also of the career centers, which are personal and professional development and becoming an ecosystem that facilitates connections and communities. At Stanford University, we have done that. In only 4 years, we have transformed a typical career development center into a new model of meaningful work that relies on the steps of designing careers, venturing in different experiences, and then pursuing goals all around this idea of connections. So anything that we do, we build community and we connect students to it. We try to help them connect with meaning out of those experiences and connect with opportunities. And this model has been leading the way for us and has turned our program into a cutting-edge career education model around the world. The brand approach of this has been very important, is that we do not consider what we do a typical career center, if you will. We changed the brand and the name to BEAM, which means Bridging Education, Ambition, and Meaningful Work. And it's under this promise of career education, meaning that students are expected to learn and to be educated about all of these skills that they have to do so that they can progress in their careers on their own. No one is going to just come and hand them a job. We are not a place that gives students jobs. We are here to educate. We are here to connect. We are here to build communities in order for students to find their way to meaningful work. And meaning rules everything in what we do. If you want to learn more about us, I encourage you to look at our website, beam.stanford.edu. We're also on social media, and we'll be happy to provide any information you'd like about the cutting-edge programs and models that we have done by building our career communities and lots of programming and activities for our students with our team of career ventures that connect students with employment opportunities and with employers, and with our group of career catalysts that provide lots of opportunities for students to experience new things and to connect with mentors and to connect with diversity networks. All of this is also on the foundation of the idea of design thinking, life design, because we want to build life designers rather than career explorers. And we have created this life design lab at Stanford that is being led by our D School, Design School, and our two faculty members, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, who have both wrote a really powerful book, Designing Your Life, that is now central to the work that we do. So I end by saying that whatever you do to help students find their path towards meaningful work, make sure that your strategy is transformational, not transactional, that will make it less expensive and more scalable. And you can learn about all of these trends and everything that I have talked about today in an article that I wrote, that I published on LinkedIn, titled 10 Future Trends in College Career Services. And you're welcome to reach out to me anytime if you have questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Day. Dr. Day. Actually, BEAM, Stanford Career Center is BEAM, Bridging
Education,
ambition, and meaningful work. It's the title of the center also speaks a lot, okay, for the new paradigm for career education in college. So, thank you very much for your, thoughtful and comprehensive presentation.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, now let's move on to Mr. Oh,
all right.
to Singapore case. Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay. First of all, annyeonghaseyo. It's been a privilege to be in Korea. Once again, I've been in Korea for 2 times, and most of the times has been as a tourist. But this time round, I'm delighted to be here in the official capacity. In one sense, representing Singapore because of our close connection between Singapore and Korea, and also representing my university, NTU, Nanyang Technological University. Many of the things that I'm delighted that I have presented after Dr. D is because the research, the tremendous research that has been done by Stanford has already, in one sense, been mirrored upon in NTU. And one of the things that I'm delighted to talk about is many of the things, the point, we wanted to create a career center that is very much uniquely to the Asian context. So Singapore being part of Asia, a lot of our students, a lot of our emphasis is very much among the Asian markets and Asian families. So we wanted to have the best of the West in terms of their discovery, in terms of their research, and bring it into a model that will work in, at least for Singapore. And hopefully at the end of my presentation, it will give you some ideas and pointers of how to possibly develop it for Korean universities, and hopefully from this we can continue to learn from one another. Unlike Stanford, which is more renowned, let me just give a few seconds to share what is NTU and my university. In fact, I just had a couple of statistics. Korea is one of the most visited destinations as far as NTU student is concerned. Obviously, thank you so much for your K-pop and your Korean drama, and of course, most recently, Descendants of the Sun. So it has been great, tremendous. So it excites a lot of students to come over to Korea, and I'll invite Korean universities to also pay NTU a visit. very quickly, this is a short history which I want to put into for all of you. Of course, you can go into our NTU website for greater details. NTU is established as a full university offering our own degrees back in 1991, and over the last 20 over years from 91, we have established different schools, but we were born out of technological university simply because of our emphasis of engineering, technology, and sciences. Of course, over the years, we have put in the School of Humanities, the Arts, etc., and now it is a fully comprehensive university. And later on, back in from 06 to 10, we've added a medical school and an Asian School of Environment, and we'll continue to do and train the nation's professionals so that they can go on to be meaningful contributors into societies and possibly in the world where they work. So this brings a lot of tremendous opportunities and also challenges how to develop this. We are a big university, 33,200, of which about 24,000 are undergraduates, bachelor's degree, and another almost 9,000 are masters and PhDs. We do have a lot of international students. Majority of them, of course, comes from Asian countries, and also some of them from the rest. And for the masters, majority of them come and read masters and PhDs. We have got international faculties. We always say that back in NTU, we are the mini United Nations. Out of the 4,005 of them faculty and research members, about most of 70% of them are from all over, and we do have got very, very eminent scholars from South Korea teaching in our university. The NTU college structure, not unlike some of the major universities in South Korea, predominantly we do have got our humanities, the science, the engineering, business, and of course, most recently, we have added the medical schools, right? So more details, some of the curriculum, you can visit our website. I gave a presentation yesterday at the Global HR Forum, and I am delighted to share many of this with the audience. I think what is more important and the objective is to share the NTU Singapore story, how we as an Asian university is wanting to and continue to adapt the way that we prepare our students for the global and increasingly competitive world. The theme at the forum has to do with the Industrial Revolution 4.0. And in Singapore, we are not immune because we are an open society. Many of this latest development, we probably are the first country to experience it, like many of the emerging and developing economies. So it is very, very important for us to prepare our graduates well so that they can go on to get meaningful employment. So this rests upon the shoulders of the career office. And as far as the whole university is concerned, it is important because we have got a small population and only quite a limited number make it to universities. So right from the beginning, whenever that we have new students, freshmen especially comes in, we paint upon them this picture that the university is not an extension of your junior college, which is very much like your high schools in Korea, or polytechnic, but the beginning of one's career journey. Dr. Day mentioned that you have to design your life, you have to design your career. So it is important that for the university, we help them to do so. So in NTU Singapore, we help our students to begin university with the end in mind. It's very much like the way that we go about in our plans. I'm sure in universities, in your own colleges, you have got your plan, planning to succeed. In corporations, you have a plan so that you can grow and continue to expand your business. So we say that for students, you need to have a plan, and 4 years in university, at least in NTU, where most of our degrees are 4 years, you start planning from the day you are a freshman. And the way that we go about doing it is to continue to teach our students, to remind our students. So at the bottom, you can see a link that I wrote recently expounding on our student, not to focus too much on the grades. Of course, studying is important. We've been Asian. We always want to study. I like to study, but always with an intention in mind, especially in higher education. So let me go right down to a little bit more details, especially some of the audience here who are into career development and also for career education. Back in NTU, the whole burden of undergraduate and postgraduate career education and preparation lies in my office. We call it the Career Attachment Office. Of course, we born out of an attachment because long before we have career education or a career center, we started with the Office of Professional Attachment. In other words, the very basic foundation that we started off is internship and work integrated learning. Of course, over the years, we added the career services into our portfolio. So now our NTU student has got a holistic career preparation that spans from the day that they entered NTU and the day that they graduate. Of course, they don't stop after they graduate. They continue to learn, prepare, and develop career for their whole life ahead. So what is the vision for CAO? And from here on, I'll use CAO for short. We are the universally interface with the industry and business for experiential learning and talent development. In one sense, as been mentioned in Stanford, this is very much like the community. We start with working with the community. After all, when the student graduate, they graduate working with organization. It doesn't not always means that it has to be for profit organization. Quite a number of our students also work in non-profit organizations, NGOs, start up their own companies, etc. So what is all important is they understand and they know what they are doing and where is their plan going to be. Even if they are not able to do it the first time, they continue to look for other areas, they continue to have other plans, other paths, but they need to start off with a plan, just like when we drive, we need to have a map in order for us to know where our destination. Otherwise, we will be going round and round. So a student without a career plan or a career development, they will be at a loss. So this is where our purpose and our spirit is being founded. Very quickly, some of the numbers so that you can get a sense of perspective, how we go about preparing the student at the tertiary level. Right? We have got on the right 8,005, and this is very much the number of graduates approximately every year that we have back in NTU. About 6,000 undergraduates, another 2,005 for masters and PhDs, and we help them in their recruitment and job opportunities. Secondly, 4,008 of them, these are internship and attachment. We use internship and attachment interchangeably. These are very much the undergraduates. Some of the core degree courses, compulsory, they must go for their internship in order for them to graduate. And it's increasingly important for among the Singapore higher education. We all have got internship so that it is a stepping stone towards their job. And many of the companies uses internship as a hiring process so that they hire students who are already aware of their industry and better still, aware of the organization so that when they join the organization, they know what they are in for and the expectation is more or less matched and aligned. And the remaining 33,000 of them has to do with student career services. It is primarily career preparation and education. How do we plan for them so that they become more aware and more informed. And how big we are, the numbers below give you an indication of the staffing that we have. As said, it's not that we have a lot of people to deal with 33,200. We can't and we cannot hire all the people in the world just to take care of each individual student. What we cannot do individually on a one-to-one, we use technology. And in my presentation yesterday at the Global HR Forum, the question was, what about how do you reach out to 32,500? Well, technology, artificial intelligence, certain things of the technology we are putting in place so that students with a smartphone will be able to access some of the content, some of the things that we can do without human intervention, yet is required for all 33,000 technology is now able to do the job for us. Let me quickly move on. From student career services, we branched down into 5 different areas, and the bulk of the resources has to do with the career coaching. One of the arguments at the forum is we can never replace, possibly never replace the human intervention of one-to-one. So things that the machine is not able to do, we still have to boil down to having an individual conversation, a group conversation, and of course, if time and resources permit, a group of individuals. But we do that from a career coaching, helping. Interestingly, we do not call them counselors, we do not call them advisors, we call them a coach. Because in our context, coach is everywhere. You have a piano coach, you have a soccer coach, you have got even a drama coach, a speech coach, and singing coach. Now you got a career coach. And career coach is more than just simply a coach that asks you to do all the things. And you'll find later on towards my end of the presentation, many of the coach becomes lifelong personal friends. And we want it to be continue to have. We are not just simply there as a teacher or as a coach. We want it to be a friend, a lifelong friend. The rest of the others are familiar in some of you who are already into career services, employability skills training, and we do a lot of fundamentals training. So again, the question is, how do you reach so many 6,000 students per cohort? Technology, right? Online courses so that they are able to get access and be trained on an individual level. And then, of course, a lot of industrial and career education, including the alumni. I can't emphasize a lot, but to enable the alumni to be part and parcel of this community. We're only 50 plus people. How to deal with so many thousands of students? Alumni becomes our backbone as far as helping the students concerned. And many of the alumni comes back to help out with the student on all aspects of the areas. And of course, lastly, technology. What we cannot do with humans, or what we, and since if it's a job that requires repetitive, such as CV writings and interviewing skills, technology is now able to help us to do that. So we have got 3 tiers as far as career services are concerned back in NTU. So at the very top, career preparation and guidance, we still do one-to-one because many of the students, I'm not too sure about students that is over in Korea, but as far as NTU is concerned, they still want the one-to-one. They still want the warm, nice, fuzzy touch of having a human being to talk to. So personalized career preparation and guidance are still there. And then the rest, we use it online for the student to prepare. And if some of the students still wants to learn and understand more, they come to the workshop. These are usually groups and master class. Many of them comes. And of course, the career awareness and outreach. I'm not too sure about students over in Korea. We need to reach out to the student. The student don't come to us. So we spend a lot of time reaching out to the student via the emails and all the social medias that you are familiar with, right? And of course, career talks, resources for industries and experienced career education. We bring a lot of industry into our campus just to show them, just to share with them, just to have small talk and let them understand and be aware of what careers are out there. In fact, even some of the future jobs that we have been talking for the last couple of years, what will be the new jobs that is out there, many of these small talks, conversation allow the industry to give them an idea. So student absorb, student understand, and students begin to start thinking and reflect and make adjustment. Rather than a first-year student listening to this talk, make adjustment in terms of their majors, in terms of their courses, then waiting until when they graduate and when they approach a companies and say, oh, we need these skills, but the student hasn't been prepared for the last 3 years. What would you want them to do? They would have been wasted. And last but not least, again, technology comes in. Many of the content, many of the learning, we, in one sense, are encouraging the NTU, yes, we will help you on a face-to-face, we will help you in whatever way that we can. But we also want you to be self-directed. At the end of the day, students are responsible for their own career. And they want it to be. They do not want us to tell them exactly what they want to do. So in one sense, they still have to go, learn, find out, think, reflect, and finally make their own decision what I want to do, at least for the first job when they graduate, and possibly what I want to do for the rest of their life. So in a nutshell, this is what we do. Going a little bit into details, we develop a SODA model, S-O-D-A, easier to understand. You know, it's SODA. So anywhere that they go, whether or not they are in year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4, once they look into this map, it reminds them of what they need to be. SODA mirrors the 4 years of degree courses most of the time NTU offered, right? So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, SODA is able to map. Go into a little bit details. In any things that student wants to do, I was a student once, I need to know, I need to find out as young as I am, what are the things that I want to do. So it is an assessment, it's understanding who I am, what are my strengths, what are my interests, what are my inclinations. They may be coming in for an engineering course. What exactly does that mean? Not necessarily that they want to be a practicing engineer. They may want to be a thinking engineer or a design engineer. And likewise in a business course, not necessarily everyone will come in and want to be in a particular areas. They want to use business skill to do other things. So is the sciences, so with the arts and humanities. So for us in the SODA model, the self-assessment has to ask the student, what are you good at? And we want them also to continue to understand, to continue to know, and we use tools to help them. Not necessarily that tools will always cast in stone what their profile is, but at least they get an inclination for them to do. Then the coaches will sit down and have an understanding. Again, I must emphasize, we do not dictate what they want to do. The student have all the autonomy and the understanding. However, many of them doesn't know what they don't know. This is where the coaching comes in. This is where they, the individual, we call ourselves the friend, the mentor, or whatever. I've just learned a Korean word based on my own understanding of Korean dramas and whatever. We become their oppa, right? So we understand. So we become their brother. I don't want to be their ajushi. I want to be their oppa, where they open up their thoughts and we become a friend, right? Not another uncle for them, right? So, so second part of it, the O. The O is the explore the options, right? Very early. And in our universities, generally in their year 2, that's where they choose their specialization. So the career options allows them to learn from the industry. And we, again, I emphasize, we invite a lot of industries. The employers comes back and just simply to talk and to tell them and to do a lot of networking for them to interact and ask very, very deep questions, right? What kind of skills do they have? What is the progress? What is the roadmap, etc. We want the student to ask deep questions in order to understand, is it really that they would want to do? They don't know what they don't know, so they ask questions. From don't know, they become at least know a bit, and as they investigate, they come to know more and more. So networking with industrial professionals, through career fairs, through recruitment talks, to networking, this is a constant affair, and we do it year-round. Singapore is a small place, so small island, so for the companies to come to NTU as a campus to do this is not much of an issue. And of course, for students to go in to visit the organization is also not much of a challenge either. Then we move on to setting the direction. So once they know what they don't know, this is where the direction comes in. And most of the time, this direction sets when they go for the internship. 80%, 85% of undergraduates in NTU go for a credit-bearing internship. A lot of the internship are compulsory, so if they don't do it, they don't graduate. So it's embedded into their course curriculum. Even those who are not compulsory or optional, NTU students still go and do an internship just to make sure for them to understand what they are in for, and also to prepare their portfolio. And obviously, in job interviews, as most of you are aware, that it's not about your grades, it's not about what you have learned, it's how you apply and what kind of experience that you have in terms of applying this. And so we want the student to know that. Then more planning, more coaching, because by the time they are into the D stage, they are into their penultimate year or year 3, they should be able to know generally what would they want to do. This is where another group of my staff comes in. These are the career consultants. Career consultants comes from various domains in the industry. In Singapore, from banking and finance to oil and gas to Infocom, etc. Very much similar to what you have in South Korea. And this is what I call, if it's in a medical term, these are the specialists. The career coaches are like generalists, talk about a lot of things in general and setting a general direction. But once the student is aware of what they want to do and begin to deep dive into a particular domain, into particular professional skills, into a particular competency, this is where the career consultants comes in. As the word consultant, they provide the consulting. They are people whom we hired from the industry, very much into the industry. They are able to give more credible and insightful points, insightful advice to students who are interested. Because they come from the industry, they'll be able to explain and able to work with the student, clearing up their doubts, and they'll be able to make finally an informed decision. So what is informed decision? Informed decision is to take action. So taking action goes in with, you continue to work, and since if it's in the graduating year, the moment that they start August, which is the start of our semester in NTU, all the way where they finish their courses in May the following year, they will go for interviews, they will go for networking, they will go and seek out jobs. At the same time, they can still go back to their coaches, they can still go back to the consultants. They need to polish up on interviewing skills the day before, the week before, or even the night before the interviews. The consultants or the coaches will help them to polish up their interviewing skills, especially if they are interviewing in specific areas of the industry. So if you're going for a management consulting job, what are the things that you need to prepare? How do you answer a particular question? Well, likewise with the banking, likewise with the rest of the others, even with government jobs as well. And finally, all the practices, even if they fail on an interview, they come back to the career consultant, relook. Same thing, right? As a coach, as a consultant, you go for a particular tournament, failed, didn't win podium, doesn't matter. Come back to the coaches and consultants, we rework. What happens during the interview? What happens? What probably are the answers that you gave wrong in a particular question that didn't lead you to winning the job? All this comes back and we rework again and again. So lastly, if I were to sum up, at the end of the day, what is the key areas, at least for NTU CAO does, right? Career exploration and coaching, one-to-one, one-to-group, and one-to-masses. Secondly, industry-specific career consultation. The coachings are the general practitioner. The consultants are the specialists. Once they zero in on a particular area, the consultant will help to explore, to open up even more avenues. Online career module takes care of the learning that students do not want to learn. We make it compulsory as part and parcel of the syllabus they have to do. But more than often, students initially were having difficulties, or why would I need to do all these things? Finally, in fact, almost all of them comes out and say, this is important, this is beneficial. Why? Because they do not know what they do not know. So career employabilities and skills workshop, student has a choice. So after they finish their online courses, they have the choice to go for the one-to-one consult. It's not important, but we encourage the student. Just as we finish our courses in the classroom, we wanted to have more consultations with our professors. This is what the practice is all about. Lastly, credit-bearing internship, increasingly, very important. All the higher education in in Singapore almost have got courses that embed internship, because internship is a key area for the student just to test out the skills, and also for the industry to come close with the student to understand what they are, setting the right expectation. So it's very much in the Singapore context. Industry and career experiential education, over and above what we do not teach in the academic syllabus, we will take over to do. All the soft skills that has been mentioned, some of the top skills that you saw from the previous presentation, from creative skills, design thinking, communication, how to think on the spot, EQ, etc., we supplement the student so that they understand and they appreciate. These are not for courses, so it's not compulsory, but it is popular with the student, especially those who need help in this area. Again, we leave it to the student to decide and take responsibility how they want to learn, what they want to learn, and if they are willing to learn, we have the resources to help them. And last but not least, heavy emphasis on recruitment and networking events. One of the key things as our indicators of university's graduate employment is very, very important, especially for the Singapore context. We want our graduates to gain good employers, top employment, of course, good pay and top job. This is always the overriding factor why we want to do this, to prepare the student. Obviously, money is not the important thing. What we want is for the student to go out when they graduate to do and go into a job, a profession that they enjoy doing, and they continue to enjoy doing that, right? Money and pay are secondary. So finally, my last couple of slides has to do all the things that we said, how do we communicate this to the student? Obviously, one of the challenges, as I will expound on it later, is reaching out to the student. So we reach them traditional. The Chronicles is a student newspaper. We have a one-page career page. Every edition, we pay for the last page. So everywhere where they go, whether they are in the cafeteria, where they take a train, they open up the newspaper, it's at the back. So the things that we want to communicate are all in print form. On an online form, bi-weekly newsletter reaches all the students. It indicates what are some of the events, what are the things that they do, what are all the things that I mentioned in terms of career activities. Is all at the student fingertips. One click away, they get to know all the things, even booking of career coaches and consultants online. So using smart devices, I reach all the students. Challenges, right? Organizers wants me to talk about challenges. We are still work in progress. We have not reached there, and will probably not reach there simply because every generation of students is very, very different. The aspirations is different, the environment is different, the industry is different. So we continue to have challenges, but we are working on it. We are improving on it so that batches after batches, cohort after cohort of students will benefit. So we put a triangle. The triangle is the community of learner, which is the student, the university, my faculties, and all the resources that is in it, and of course, the employer. Ultimately, they still need to go out and look for the job. My main challenges has to do with students. Not so sure about in Korea. Back in Singapore, grades is still important. The focus on grades, I want to do well. Every student wants to do well and score an A. So grades, study, and other interests and other priorities. After all, they got 4 years. They want to see the world. They want to go to study exchange. There are many. In fact, we encourage them to do many, many other things other than simply studying the books. So one of the areas is to get the student to be interested, to be aware that, yes, they still have to plan for their career during their 4 years. Secondly, right, as a university, as a top university in the world, it is still a focus on research and teaching. It has to be, right, in order for us to maintain the peak and in the forefront of our technology and our knowledge. So how do we get the university involved in career matters as part and parcel of giving the best to the student that come to study in NTU? Employers are not fully engaged with universities, which is always true. they have got other priorities. They have got business to take care of. They have got issues too. How would they have got time to come to universities to talk to the student? How would they have time to be part and parcel of the classroom outside of the university? How would they have time to even host the student? All the things that we wanted to do, the employers did not necessarily be able to do that. So it's not simply just one employer. We need to have a whole employer base so that even when one or two employers are not able to do that, we have got a pool of employers for us to tap on. So this is where I come into how to overcome the challenges. As in all students, we have to continue to occupy their mind share, right? We have to continue to educate and educate and educate. We continue to have to tell them and tell them and tell them. And not only that, to remind them. And we're not going to do that from a teacher perspective. We're going there to do it from a friend's perspective. So the total mind share of encouraging the student, reminding the student that the day that you step into the university is the day that you start planning for your life, for your career. So make use of the 4 years in order to do that, and we'll provide you with all the resources that you have at the university disposal in order to help you. The whole village fully committed is an ongoing thing. We are not there yet, but we are working closely with the faculties, and I'm glad to say that I have got tremendous support from my faculty colleagues, and they see it as important because they do have got their own children. They do have got their own experience that requires them to know that at the end of the day, it is the preparation of the students, preparations of the graduates in order to win the job, or in order to do something that they want to do and happy to do it for the rest of their life. So they need to be involved both from the academia and also the personal. One of the things that our faculty do very well is they become a personal coach because they are closer to the student. Day in, day out, the students see them in classrooms and lecture rooms. So they become my default career coaches. And so although I only have got a handful, I have got the whole NTU faculty to support me to be career coaches in their time. And last but not least, strong sustaining base. One of the things that we have done constantly is to reach out to the employers, to talk to them, not necessarily that they must always recruit, not necessarily that they must always give internship. We just want them to come in and be part and parcel of our co-curriculum process. Tell them about 4th generation, 5th generation, the roadmaps, things that you can review. We always say, what is the future of work? No one is as more credible than the employers to come into the campus and say to them, say to our student, this is the future of what we are going to be. Coming from the employer's mouth is a very, very powerful language, a very powerful message that you need to beef up on certain areas. You need to be competent in this area because we are going to migrate from this platform, this architecture, this process, this thinking, this concept into a higher level. So go and learn, discover, etc. So the top one, sustaining an employer base, allows our employers to be our teachers to teach our students. This is my last slide. After all that I said, what is career? What is career education? What is career preparation? What is career service? Whether or not we call ourselves a service center or a educational center or whatever term, that's not important. What is important is what do we do when we engage the student. It's more than just placing jobs and internship. That's transactional. That is something that needs to be done. And probably it's been done in many of the career centers all over the world, not just in Singapore. It's beyond just preparing for future careers. Not necessarily everyone will go out and want to earn salaries. Many want an education so that they can be better person to the society. Not necessarily everyone who graduate has to go for a salary job. They just want to use their knowledge to help people. They work for NGOs. They work for not-for-profit. They work for free. They volunteer their time and their life using what they have learned from the universities. So how do we help each and every one to realize the dream? We become their friends over 4 years. We hope that we are the one that when they engage, incidentally, the career coach are one of the first persons a freshman will meet when they entered into NTU. So the coach becomes their friend. Someone who came along, a total stranger on the first day of college, of university life in NTU, that came alongside in their journey towards achieving their life aspiration. Notice I didn't put the word career there. It is life aspiration. We respect what you want to do. We respect what you hope to do. We respect what you want to contribute to the society, and it is your choice. And along that journey, we become your friend. We become a friend, a good friend for quite a few. And the heartening is always when they come back and volunteer as an alumni, they drop us a card from time to time to say, thank you, Mr. Low, thank you, my consultant's name, for spending 4 years with us, for sitting there and listening to our problem. Most of the time we go there, we listen to their problems. And finally be the friend to neutral enough, not biased, and just point out to the direction. We just want to have a friend to listen. Well, sometimes even a shoulder to fall on. This is career services. This is career center. This is career education. This is career preparation. We are friends of our student. So on that note, kamsahamnida, and thank you. Welcome to Singapore, and for some of you who haven't come down. So I will open up for questions for the rest of you who I may not fully have addressed some of your issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Law.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very concise as well as comprehensive presentation. So actually, he introduced SODA program, right?
Yes.
So indeed, we need SODA at this time, right? It's very difficult to wake up in this time zone. So we will have a short break,
Okay.
10 minutes break, and then come back. So don't go away. Please come back in 10 minutes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You need soda, right? Okay.
I need a soda.